Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Sorry we got rained out during yesterday's show. That was crazy. I'm glad we started early. We had to start early on yesterday's show because big storm was coming through. And with this metal roof, it's impossible to do a show. On your end, as the show progressed yesterday, you started hearing like this static sound. It just sounded really staticky. I do have a filter on my mic and it kind of takes out most of the background noise, but what was able to come through was static toward the end of the show, so apologies for that. Now the rains returned yesterday afternoon and it was even more fierce than the morning storm, and I looked outside and you could see I have these 150 foot tall oak trees. And it's kind of intimidating. You know, I've often considered pushing them over. Here in Arkansas, the roots don't go very deep, so you can kind of push a tree over with just a simple, tractor. But, of course, I didn't want to do that because the trees are so beautiful, but they are very tall. Some of them are somewhat thin, and some of them are leaning. But I figure as long as they're not leaning over the house, I should be okay. But you never know how they're going to fall when the wind kicks up, right? So I look outside, and the way it goes out here is pretty much the wind comes first, then the rain is pretty much how it happens. So it almost looked like a tornado, but there aren't any tornadoes in this location where I'm at. I looked at the historical tornado data going back to the 1800s, and there never has been a recorded tornado, and it's because of these hills. You don't want to be on flat lands when in tornado country. You want to, if you're looking for a property, you want to definitely look at the tornado historic map and see where the kind of the natural barriers and borders are. Now, that's not to say they can't, they have these weapons. We'll talk a little bit about these weapons today and the fire in Lahaina. That's going to be probably our top story today is the fire in Lahaina. But, these people can do anything with these weapons, anything that they want. So nothing is for sure, but historical data is definitely something to look at. So I look outside my window and these giant 150 foot trees are just swaying back and forth in the wind. It was a little bit intimidating, knowing that these things weigh several tons each. I don't know if you've ever picked up a piece of solid oak, a solid oak beam. One beam alone is very, very heavy. So anyway, the rain barrel, 100-gallon rain barrel overflowed in about an hour of the rain. And so, wow. Now I woke up this morning, I looked outside, there's no fallen trees or anything, so we're good. And typically the general rule is that if a tree isn't dead and it's rooted itself and survived all the storms before you got there, then it's probably going to be okay. But you always got to look around the base of the trees to make sure it's not starting to upend itself. So anyway, getting some stuff done on the Honey Milk Ranch. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little discouraged about the garden. Charlie and his sister and her husband came to visit me the other day, and we went over to visit some friends down at the end of the county road here. They're on the lake, and they said that their whole garden got eaten up by critters. Like, I don't know, I guess it was raccoons and possums and whatever else. And they have a 6-foot fence up. And they were talking about electrifying the fence and all. I was like, I don't want to go through all that. Now, he did recommend putting like chicken wire over the top of it. I suppose I could bring myself to do something like that. But basically, you're creating a prison for the plants to keep the critters away. It's like if they want them that bad, they're going to find a way. They're going to dig a hole underneath. I mean, it's like trying to build a wall to keep illegal immigrants out. This is not going to happen. You have to disincentivize them some other way. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I've got my, my thing over here, my box, my raised bed, and I'm throwing food scraps in there and turning it and everything, doing what I need to do to get it ready for next year. But oh boy, gardens, right? Country gardens, let's put it that way. Because when you're in the city, but even people in the city are having problems keeping their garden going without something eating it. So I have no idea, you guys. I don't know how those of you that are have gardens are dealing with, pests, critters, and all that stuff. But it's definitely a problem out here. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Daryl, Christy, Lilith of Eden, Buzz, Lori, Colspiracy, hello. So, now, a couple more things before we get into this fire and some of the other headlines. This is going to be a huge show today. It's going to be packed, lots and lots of stuff. Lots of stuff is emerging. We've got the flux, the new flu X, they're calling it. Illness. Flu X, can you believe that? Like flux, the flux capacitor. We're going to talk about the organs in your body being like organs in a pipe. Because your organs have a certain resonance to them. And they're trying to use bioelectronics to modulate your organs now. So we're going to talk about all of that as well. But quick update on the Honey Milk Ranch. Many of you saw in the past videos the generator house that I built out of concrete blocks. I put a little roof on it, a little tin roof, just to protect it from the elements, as well as kind of a sound barrier, because those generators can get loud. Now my generator isn't that loud, but it's also because it's inside the little sound house that I made for it. And that generator only cost me about $400, and I bought it on Amazon, and it showed up. We did have a power outage a couple months ago, and I turned it on, and I switched over to the transfer switch, and it did its job. I was like surprised. I was like, wow, that's really cool. That is a lot of value, right? But then I was like, why don't we plumb that into the propane tank? Because gasoline can be somewhat dangerous. It can be messy, and those generators, I think I looked it up, and a gallon of gas will run a generator for about 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours. And so I was like, I'm going to pipe this thing into the propane tank. So that's what I did. I had a plumber come over, and for a very reasonable price, Mike the plumber was able to plumb this into my house. Now, I'm not going to show this to you. I'm sure there's some rule out there. You're not allowed to do this, whatever. So I don't want, there's always someone that will nitpick, the job or why I'm doing it or how dangerous it is. Gasoline is dangerous. I don't think propane's as dangerous. So I got that all hooked up just to let you know it can be done. And it at a reasonable price. If this is something you want to consider doing, that would be something you'd want to do, especially going into the winter. Have a plumber and come in and pipe off of your propane tank so that you can make it through several days if the power goes out. Now, what else is going on? Well, over here, sometimes the power will go out for 3 or 4 days, and it's only because the weather's so bad that the emergency personnel can't get out onto the icy roads to fix the problem. So, there are people on my road that have told me that their power had gone out for actually weeks at some point, but this was like 20 years ago. But there have been cases where it had gone out for weeks. And the only way you're going to get through that, unless you're storing up a bunch of gasoline, the only way you're going to get through that is with propane. So apparently even my county road, some people can't even get out the county road to get onto the main road, because there are some dips and turns that get so icy that you can't get up the road. So you're pretty much trapped. Now, is that a bad thing? No. As long as you're prepared, as long as you have your generator to run your freezer and refrigerator, and you've got heat, you're going to be fine. You could probably tough it out for the entire winter on the propane, So a little bit of planning, and you'll be able to make it. But I bring up all this and I talk about this to help you guys prepare, okay? Because we're entering an age, they're actually trying to do away with propane. Could you imagine all these unincorporated areas and country homes without propane, relying on the grid? I just can't imagine what that would even look like. And I hope the governor of Arkansas never ever caves in to the electric kingdom and believing all their lies, trying to force us all into this electric grid. So if you're ever to live in a place where, you'd want to be one of the holdouts of all the rest of the 50 states and hold on to propane, it would probably be a place like Arkansas, which has a lot of unincorporated areas and countryside and a lot of people on propane. Sure, if you pulled up a map, it would probably say a lot of people are on propane out here. So you would probably be able to use propane 5 or 10 years longer than everyone else in the other states, like California or New York, who's talking about doing away with all that within the next few years. So these are just little things that I like to share with you guys so you can plan for the future, because this is all about planning for the last days, right? We're supposed to be planning. Doesn't mean you need to be in fear, but you need to be prepared so that when the things come, you're ready to handle them until Jesus returns. Now, what else is going on? Oh, one more thing about Arkansas. Yeah, we do get ice sometimes, but the beautiful thing about Arkansas is actually still considered the South. And so it never goes too long. Usually within a week of the freezing weather, you'll get temperatures rising up above the freezing point and everything will kind of melt off. So the most you really need to prepare for is a week to 2 weeks. And after that, it melts off and you're able to just drive through. And it's kind of fun, like you're out here. And I remember the power went out one time last year when I was in Lead Hill, and it's like a little community. So as everything starts to thaw out, everybody kind of trickles back out into the community, and everyone's in the restaurant sitting down talking about the ice storm, talking about the fallen trees and stuff like that. And it's kind of a neat, cozy feeling. That's the feeling I got anyway. So what else is going on? Well, let's get into some of these headlines. Oh, one more thing. I'll tell you this last story about the generator before we move on to the headlines. Funny story. So the guy came out, and it only took him about 3 hours to hook up this propane, right? And he had the generator all connected. He went to turn it on, and it was like it wouldn't fire up. And we were scratching our heads. We sat there for about 30 minutes trying to figure this out. We went round and round and round, right? And I said, well, maybe it isn't getting enough pressure from the tank. And he's like, no, he goes, it's getting enough pressure. And in these situations, I've learned to kind of calm down. I used to get real excited about these things and get upset and start pointing fingers. Because if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. That's just what happens now these days. If you ever start getting any kind of rhythm going in your life where positive things are happening, lo and behold, you'll get hit with a bunch of negative things. It's just the way this life works. It's the way the matrix works. So I've learned not to get upset about it. And so we're just sitting there scratching our heads. We could not figure it out. So then I call him he was like a young guy, young plumber. He goes onto the generator and he looks inside the little nozzle, and he goes, there's something in there. And I go, what is that? What do you guys think it was? Let's go to the chat. What do you guys think was inside the little hole where you hook up the propane hose to? Somebody will get this. Oh boy. Valve was on, Stacy. The valve was on. Cheyenne's close. They're so cute. Nope, not a snake. It's just a little tiny hole. There you go. Jan got it. It was some kind of mud dauber wasp. And they're like the cutest little things. They work so hard with their little mud houses. And then we come and we knock them off, right? I had to knock one off inside my garage. And they had built, it was almost 6 inches long along the seam. And I was like, how did you guys build that fast? Because I'm always tinkering around, looking around. And a little mud dauber built a little mud house inside the hole. Of course, you couldn't see it, so I sprayed WD-40 in there. And it took about 10 Q-tips. And it was like we were cleaning out some dirty ears or something. So we got all the mud out of the hole, and it was my bad for not putting the cap on. And lo and behold, it fired right up and it ran. He's like, you might want to run this for about 10 minutes just to make sure it's good. And I did. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. So now I'll never run out of power. I'll always be able to go live with you guys. So that will be good. Now, let's get started. It's kind of a sad story today. What's going on in Lahaina? It has to be our top story today. A huge fire And all of Maui, well, not all of Maui, but much of western Maui is on fire. Look at all these fires. Now, this is Lahaina here. It's on the west coast of Maui. We've got some fires here in the central part of Maui, going down the edge of the hill here, or the mountain. And this is crazy. 36 people are dead. There are people literally having to jump into the ocean from the coast of Lahaina to evade the fires. It happened so fast that it has me suspicious. 36 people confirmed dead in these fires. There were bodies floating on the seawall. This is a really sad story, you guys. Now, let's read a little bit about this, and then I'll give you my thoughts about what this is about, okay? This is my opinion. But as I began my investigation, the first thing that I noticed is that Lahaina sits on a stretch of mostly undeveloped or old coastline. There aren't really a lot of big resorts here. Here you can see it right here. And it's a very dry area. But there is only really one larger resort, and it's not even that large. It's actually pretty old. And it's kind of sitting, I think this is it right here. And the rest of it is mostly condos. Now, Lahaina is a destination location, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it after we read what happened in Lahaina. Let's, I guess, watch this video. This might be good to watch here.
And the breaking news continues on Maui.
Look
tonight,
at this.
Where 3 fires continue to burn, and the Coast Guard is
Wiped
asking all
out.
mariners to be on the lookout for survivors still in the water off Lahaina.
This new video here shows the wasteland left behind by yesterday's explosive wildfire, and tonight, gruesome new details on the casualties as witnesses report seeing bodies still lying in the streets. Just moments ago, the county announced a new death toll. 36 people are now confirmed to have lost their lives.
Now, what makes us sad is that there are probably a lot of retired people here. See, most people of average fitness can get out of the way of a fire, can't they? You get in your car, or you run to the edge of it, or you figure out a way, or you swim away. But older people who maybe are on a cane or crutches, or maybe on oxygen, they are usually the victims of these kinds of things.
That's up from 6 reported this morning. In just the last hour, state leaders spoke about their immediate tasks ahead.
The primary focus is to save lives and to prevent human suffering and to mitigate great property loss.
Now, as I read through this article, you're going to see that much of Lahaina had burned before even a single fire truck showed up. Something is not right here.
That's exactly what the counties were and have been doing.
State leaders say National Guard helicopters helping with the fire battle flew for 13 hours today, dropping 150.
Look at that. That's the waterfront, you guys. How? There's no fuel here. That's the water right there. Where's the fuel for this fire? Where's the fuel? It looks like it got hit by a bomb. This is the seawall. What the heck? I wonder if they have electric cars there.
50,000 gallons of water on the flames. They'll stay on the mission in the days ahead with more than 100 Guard members on Maui and the Big Island.
Do you see this? This doesn't make any sense. There's a parking lot right here. How did these cars burn when there's no fuel? Well, some of you know. This is unbelievable.
Tomorrow, a disaster team from FEMA will arrive on Maui to take a closer look at the damage in
It looks like a bomb dropped.
hopes of securing federal funding.
I've been in contact with the White House, and
Now let's read some of this. That's pretty much the highlight. Let me go back in the chat. This is unbelievable. Now, Lahaina is somewhat of an affluent area. The property values for condos and homes is $5 million value. But something is not right here. Let's read this. Lahaina, Maui County says 36 people now confirmed dead. Historic Lahaina. Heartbreaking news, which some have feared could rise even higher. Makes it one of the deadliest disasters in Hawaiian history. Let's make this bigger for you guys. They 271 structures were damaged or destroyed by the flames. Guys, this is worse than like a tornado hitting this place. Meanwhile, at least 3 large fires on Maui, including the blaze in Lahaina, are still active and out of control, which means a full picture of the devastation hasn't yet come into view. Dozens injured, thousands displaced. Of course, Bo Jiven is going to declare a disaster. Wednesday, firefighters continue to battle the flames as first responders and residents picked through the rubble in search for survivors. We're going to do our best to get past this. It's going to be tough. It's going to take years to fix. We've still got dead bodies floating on the seawall. They've been sitting there since last night. We've been pulling people out since last night, trying to save people's lives. People jumped off into the waters of Lahaina to avoid the flames. What kind of flames do you know do that? The entire state was coming together. The news conference Wednesday, we never anticipated a hurricane that did not make an impact would cause this type of wildfires. So they're blaming it on the winds of the hurricane. 100 firefighters at any one time are battling the active wildfires on the island. Firefighters weren't able to use helicopters to douse the flames Tuesday because of the high winds. But the flames were being fought by air now. Now, somewhere in here they say that basically what ended up happening, they couldn't even get to the fire right away. It burned with nothing stopping it. Hundreds of homes and businesses. An apocalyptic scene. They were forced to jump in the harbor waters. They only had minutes to get to safety. Much of the town appears gone. It's like the area was bombed, like a war zone. So, National Guard was in here. Now, the importance of this is Lahaina used to be the capital of Hawaii before Honolulu became the capital of Hawaii. This was way back in the 1800s. What else is in here? So there's lots of videos in here. I'll put links to all this for you guys, those of you that know people here are interested in this. But wow, what a story. Now, let's get into my thoughts about this. So this is the coastline of Lahaina. This is Lahaina proper. And to the north and south of here, there are huge resorts. So Lahaina sits right here. Right here. And when you zoom out, you can see. So if Lahaina's here, all of this up here is highly impacted with resorts and beaches. And then down here is impacted with resorts and look at all the resorts and beaches along this part of the coastline. But then you get up here and it starts to get much less popular. Now, why am I saying that? Well, because opportunity. You got to look at motives. Now, as I said, there's not much along that shoreline. There are a couple huge resorts above and below Lahaina, but not in Lahaina proper. As you can see here, it kind of sits by itself. And then you get up here and down there. Now, this coastline is absolutely stunning. It reminds me of the Highway 1 in California, that I spent much of my adult life living in. Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, Pismo Beach, where you drive along the coastline and you can see the ocean. You're literally driving right along the waterfront. And that's what a lot of this coastline actually looks like. It's stunningly beautiful. And this place has lots and lots of history behind it. But to have this wiped out is very suspicious to me. Now, when you look at Lahaina, it's somewhat of a bedroom community, it looks like, but it's also a tourist destination. And it makes you wonder if this whole place isn't being terraformed. To this point, people don't even know how the fire started, but they're definitely saying that the hurricanes made it worse because of the winds of the hurricane. But this is crazy. What else? Well, I went into Wikipedia to see if I could find any more information about Lahaina, and it is definitely a special place. Aside from the fact that it has the most expensive real estate in Hawaii at $5 million for condos and homes. But the other interesting thing is that Lahaina, the name actually means cruel sun, because it has some of the driest climate of all of Hawaii, getting only 13 inches a year of rain. That sounds like a lot, but for Hawaii, it's not that much. And so it was named after a place that gets lots and lots of sun with little rain. You would think, though, that if that was the case, they would have beefed up their fire department. There would have been much more rapid response. But here's what's interesting. Lahaina is a place that's somewhere under the rainbow. Look at this. Every day at 5 o'clock, this rainbow appears in the hills above the city. I've never seen a rainbow like this with such a low arch. Look at that. And this happens every day at 5 p.m. There's something weird about this place. Now, Lahaina does have a dark side. Halloween is actually one of the major celebrations of the year in this town, with crowds averaging 30,000 people in this little tiny town of 12,000 people. Why do so many people come here for Halloween? What is it about this place? Here it talks about the 5 o'clock rainbow. The valleys are the backdrop for the 5 o'clock rainbow that happens almost every day. Wow. Now, Lahaina is also known as the Mardi Gras of the Pacific. And there were many bizarre films filmed here. One of them was The Devil at 4 o'clock, as well as Clint Eastwood's Hereafter, in which a monster tsunami wipes out Front Street in Lahaina. There are also films Jurassic Park, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Die Another Day. Those were all filmed there. And the Eagles' Hotel California album, they mention Lahaina in the song The Last Resort. So what was this about? Was this judgment? Was it terraforming? Or was it just a freak accident during a dry year and hurricane winds, as they tell us? It's hard to know. What I can tell you this, I can imagine that after these fires burn through here, investors will be coming in and building mega resorts for pennies on the dollar, just like the mega resorts directly north and south of Lahaina. So we'll keep our eyes on this in the coming years to see how all this shakes out, to see if in fact that happens. I can imagine there's going to be high-rise resorts going up in the wake of this thing. Unbelievable. Now let's move on from this fire, and I want to kind of continue along the lines of yesterday's show, because just after you all figured out the flux capacitor that we were talking about yesterday was actually really about flu X. What is flu X? Well, it's disease X, some brand new disease that they're saying is going on in the United Kingdom. How is it that the flu X coincides with the flux capacitor from Back to the Future? and that the next pandemic is being called flu X or disease X. What are the odds of that? Let's read a little bit about this, and then we'll talk a little bit about this as well. UK scientists have begun developing vaccines as an insurance against a new pandemic caused by an unknown disease X. The work is being carried out by the government's high security Portendown Laboratory Complex in Wiltshire. They have drawn up a threat list of animal viruses that are capable of infecting humans and could in future spread rapidly around the world. Which of them will break through and trigger the next pandemic is unknown. So remember, many of these diseases that we deal with today were originated from experimenting on what if the disease happened. So this is scary, not scary, but this is concerning, okay, because they're basically figuring out what the next go-around is going to be. Now, we all know that birds have carried some of these flus before. They even admitted here in this article. But remember, the flux capacitor is shaped like the vocal organ of a bird. Now I'm starting to see the connection here between flu X, flux, and the flux capacitor shaped vocal organ of birds. The organ by which they create frequency from their beaks. The syrinx, from which the word syringe was named, because it is also shaped like a hollow reed. So it's the flute, or the hollow reed, is emerging as a major symbol of the controllers of this world. A hollow tube in the shape of a needle, in the shape of sound, of a flute, with little holes in it to create different sounds. This is crazy. Is there a link between bird flu and some kind of frequency? Well, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? But this is what they're working on. Flu X, or disease X. Now, we're also going to get into the organs of your body. And I'm going to show you how sound frequency is being studied. Sound frequency is being studied to modulate disease in your organs. What is this about? Bioelectronic devices. Now, I've always told you that God's voice whispers through us. And this is what keeps us alive. It's a frequency. This is what organizes all matter. All living matter has the frequency of God in it. And when people start going against God, or they start sinning in their life to a great extent, their frequency is interrupted. It literally blocks out the sound of God in you, blocks out the life force. And maybe this is how all of this works. And this is why God keeps begging us not to sin, keeps begging us not to keep harming our own selves. It's literally a separation from God. Let's read about bioelectronics and how the enemy is essentially trying to replace this God frequency. He's like, oh, God doesn't want to give you the frequency to make your organs resonate at the correct frequency? Oh, we'll do it for you. We'll put an electronic device in you. We'll give you the God frequency back. Do you see how dangerous that is? That is not the answer. The answer is submission and fear of God and love of God. That's the way we want to go, right? Let's read a little bit about this. Recent advances in organ-specific wireless bioelectronic devices. Wow, the integration of electronics and biology has spawned bioelectronics. Now, many of you remember Trump's warp speed frontman, Moncef Slaoui, and we exposed his research into bioelectronics, hacking the vagus nerve to send frequencies into your body's organs to rid them of disease. And I told you back then that the word organ must have a double meaning, because our organs are like church organs that resonate sounds and respond and react to sounds. Maybe even the very echoes of God's creative voice. And so you have to ask yourself, is this why kidney beans are good for your kidneys? Or walnuts are good for your brains? Or carrots good for your eyes? Or tomatoes your heart? Are these shapes manifesting the shapes of vegetables, fruits, and nuts? Are they manifesting out of the very God frequency that holds our organs together? Is this a case of the chicken before the egg? In other words, is the reason why these foods are good for each of these different organs because they are resonating at the same frequency as the organs in our body that they match with? Now, this is fascinating because I never thought of it this way before, but it makes sense. The literal shape of our organs materializing, manifesting into our reality from the God realm. Now, isn't God amazing? It's kind of like the snowflakes that are also resonating on a frequency that gives them a common shape, the hexagon, which I believe is the hex. So, a snowflake might look different if it was before sin entered the world, before the sin frequency entered the world. Now, let's keep reading about these frequencies here in bioelectronics in this abstract study about the science about this. The integration of electronics and biology has spawned bioelectronics and open exciting opportunities to fulfill the unmet need of therapeutic treatments. Recent developments in nanoelectronics and soft biocompatible materials have shown potential applicability to clinical practices, including physiological sensing, drug delivery, and cardiovascular monitoring and brain stimulation. To date, most bioelectronic devices require wired connections for electrical control, making their implantation complicated and inconvenient for patients. As an alternative, wireless technology is proliferating to create bioelectronics that offer non-invasive control, biotelemetry, and wireless power transfer. Now, what do you need for all this? You need a network. Specifically, a robust network. A millimeter wave network. Are you starting to see a connection now between the pandemic, censorship, warp speed, bioelectronics, frequencies, and then Trump, then following year, passing 5G and beyond? It's all integrated together. It's connected scientifically. Let me give you another example. Let me go in the chat here and talk to you guys. I was watching the Blacklist series, and there were several episodes that talk about this. Electronic devices implanted into people, and they were actually able to track these people because there was a Wi-Fi network that was continuously being required to communicate with the medical device through the hospital. And so by hacking into that, they could locate these individuals. These devices are dependent on a robust network to modulate themselves remotely. Are you starting to see now that there is a picture that we're not seeing? Are you starting to see that now? And that Trump is not innocent to this. He knows this. This is why he passed those laws. This is why he brought in censorship to do warp speed. Now, let's keep reading here. Now, some people think, oh, this is great. It's technology. Praise Trump for the technology. No, 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 no. Okay, if they were honest with us about it, then you might have an argument there. If they weren't doing this on the down low. But they are doing it on the down low. The only reason why you even know about this is because we're talking about it today. Let's keep reading here. This review paper provides a comprehensive overview of wireless bioelectronics and ongoing developments and their applications for organ-specific treatments. Remember, your organ modulates. It's got a frequency in it. And they're trying to hack that frequency to make you not have disease in your organs, right? Instead of maybe not drinking so much or not smoking, oh, just put a frequency in there. We'll fix it. You see the problem here? The main emphasis is on delineating the key features of antennas, namely their radiation characteristics, materials, integration with the rest of the electronics, and experimental setup. Although the recent progress in wireless-mediated bioelectronics is expected to enhance the control of these functionalities, there are still numerous challenges that need to be addressed for commercialization, as well as to address ever-expanding and evolving future therapeutic targets. So here they show a little diagram here. And here you can see it illustrated. There's an antenna. They've got ingestible bioelectronics. This is what Elizabeth Keene swallowed in season 9 or 10 of The Blacklist. This is how they were able to track her, because she swallowed a pill that was also could release drugs, but it was transmitted, or it was communicating remotely with the network, and that's how they found her. That's how they were tracking her. Wireless communication transfer. Do you understand that you cannot have this without 5G? I hope you understand the connection there. You can't get away with this bioelectronic communication without 5G technology. This is why they had to push it. Pacemakers, they also communicate remotely. Retinal prosthesis, okay? And the heart, and they're trying to expand this to the rest of the organs of your body. Wow. So I'll put a link to this story as well for those of you that want to dig into that a little bit more. Now, understand that none of this is good. They're trying to replace God's frequency, to claim a cure, to upstage God instead of faith and prayer. Monsef was even a New Ager. We exposed all that as well. Now, let's get into some more of these other headlines today. Start calling this coffee talk headlines. I just think that's a funner way of talking about this. Is funner even a word? I'm sorry. Coffee talk. It was between the headlines, but I think coffee talk is fun because that's what we're doing here, right? Place where we can all speak our minds over a cup of coffee. We can laugh, we can cry, and we can break down what's actually happening in this reality without censorship or judgment, because we're just talking about the possibilities of things, aren't we? Now, viewer discretion for this next video, or this next image, these next images that I'm going to show you. I'm just going to flash these photos kind of quickly about the lady that got attacked by the demonic otter. Now, some of you are going to be tempted just to look at it because you're going to be like, oh, what damage could an otter do? This is silly, Casey. What, are you going to show us a couple scratches? No, this otter went full retard. I couldn't even believe it. And the story that we covered yesterday, heck, they tried to minimize this as some harmless little nip from a cute little otter, didn't they? And I told you, I said I saw the pictures somewhere, but today I found the pictures. This otter almost killed this lady. Look at this. Woman who was brutally attacked by a river otter shares the graphic photos. Now, she was the one that shared the photos, not the doctors. Now, of course, the doctors can't really share the photos because it's their private information. But notice how the news minimized this. We've got killer otters running around. Okay, here we go. I gave you a warning. Now I'm going to show you the actual pictures. This is nuts. I'm going to do it for 5 seconds, and then I'll move away from it, and you can come back. Okay, here we go. Look at this lady. Oh boy. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's it. Okay. What the heck is going on, you guys? The animals are acting weird. I don't know if it's the people that have changed. No, I showed the pictures just there. I don't know if the people have changed genetically to where the animals are going to attack them, or if the animals have changed. Now, one of these particular otters was in human custody. Custody. Right? They had like rescued the otter. No telling what they injected into this otter. Right? They probably vaccinated him. And then they released him to the wild, and he went wild. He went absolutely nuts. Now, I'm not going to show you any more of those pictures there. But suffice it to say, that woman got mauled by an otter. It looked like a bear attack, didn't it? A little tiny, cute otter. So, stay away from otters. Now, people are wilding out, acting like animals. Just after the Jake Paul fight and Nate Diaz, in which Nate Diaz lost the fight. I don't really watch this stuff anymore. It's just barbaric and it's just silly, right? But people are wilding out. This is some people after the fight. Look at this. I mean, are you kidding me? And they're sliding around like they're in some kind of hot oil wrestling contest. Look at this. What is wrong with people? People willing to forego their freedoms, give up their property because they know they're going to get arrested and fined for a few minutes of a brawl because someone said something to you that you didn't like. This is why I don't go to these things anymore. It's just pure aggression. It just feels dirty to be around all this. People all cheering to watch someone beat someone else's brains out. And then that spirit that's in them continues on into their life. I actually feel sorry for these people. That they've fallen into this state of humanity. It's just unbelievable. Now, Bud Light, we've been following this story, finally admitting that they blew it. I think. Let's read this article. Bud Light may never recover from the controversy that cost $400 million in lost U.S. sales. They want to enjoy their beer without a debate. Finally, the Anheuser-Busch CEO says. That's all people wanted to hear from the beginning. Now, it's interesting because as I was decoding Blacklist, they talked about companies intentionally being devalued so that they could be bought up. They actually had an episode about that. I wonder if I can't remember if I collected that screenshot for that particular part of the episode, but literally, they were talking about this before all this happened with Bud Light. Intentionally devaluing companies. So, finally, after they've lost all of their stock prices and had to lay off a bunch of people, they're finally admitting people just want to drink beer without having a political debate. Too little too late, right? Too little too late. Now, this next story, I could hardly believe this. UPS drivers making $170,000 per year? Boy, are we in the wrong business. I wonder if this is to get people to sell out to the rest of the liberal agenda because, of course, Bo Jiven's trying to take credit for all this. They're crediting unions and Bo Jiven's, plan or whatever. But why does the pendulum have to swing so far? Why can't it just be that a UPS driver makes what they're worth, about $60,000 to $70,000 per year? Because you can get one of these jobs without a college degree. Why does it have to always be hyperbole? Same with the reparations. Why does it always have to be hyperbole? Why can't it just be something reasonable? And you all know the answer to that. It's to create division. If it's something reasonable, it's not going to stoke a bunch of competition, fear, and anger on one side or the other. It's not going to polarize people. So they put stories like this out here. Oh, you can be a UPS driver and make more than most people with a college degree? That's crazy. There has to be a catch here, doesn't there? And then this begs a lot of questions. What's next? Are they going to force UPS drivers into an electric fleet? Maybe UPS has sold out to the electric vehicle, and that's why they're getting all this money. And what about FedEx workers who do almost the same thing? Are they getting a pay bump as well? Something weird going on here, isn't there? $170,000 a year to drive a UPS truck. Wow. Wow. Just crazy. Whatever's going on in this world. Now, one of you sent me this. This is nuts. New COVID variant Eris is now dominant. Now, what makes this weird is that this is literally called E5G or EG5. It might as well be 5G. Eris 5G. What is going on here? Now, this new variant is named after a goddess. And this is where we get our clues that this is about a frequency or 5G. Eris is the Greek goddess of discord, frequency, and her opposite is harmony or harmonia. Harmony, discord. Now I know there's a Discord website. I've never been inclined to want to go over there and start an account because of all the crazy stuff I've heard about Discord. But this is crazy. They're essentially admitting that this is about a frequency, aren't they? The goddess of frequency or discord. So it appears as though they know that frequency and hollow needle injections go hand in hand. Now there's more to this goddess Eris. Let's take a look here. Let's read down in here. Eris is the patron deity of a religion called Discordia. Let's go down to that part down here. Discordianism. She's the patron deity. And their book that they read, like our Bible, we're Christians, we read the Bible. The Discordians read Principia Discordia. That's their book that they read, their holy book. Look at this. A deity consults with the pineal gland to ask if Eris is truly evil. The answer they get is Eris is neither evil nor good. She's both. Because Eris is pure chaos. They even mention in here that Eris is the spirit behind creepy clowns. Not making this up, you guys. I am chaos. I am the substance from which your artists and scientists build rhythms. I am the spirit with which your children and clowns laugh in happy anarchy. I am chaos. Reminds me of the Joker's mental illness. Now it also says down here that Eris appears in the book The Illuminatus Trilogy by Robert Shea. As well as Eris was the basis for the Sleeping Beauty story. Definitely some weirdness going on in our reality, isn't there? Naming the new variant after all this occult symbolism. All right, you guys, let's go into the chat and talk about some of this stuff. I always like your input. And like I said, I always put links to all this in the pinned comment after the show's over. It usually takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to get it in there. But there's the backdrop of all of this. Like I said, there are no wrong answers here. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on everything we talked about today, about the fire, about bioelectronics and the modulation of your organs, about the new variant based on a sound frequency. You see the common theme here? Yes, it is weirdness, isn't it, Anne? Yes, we talked about the clowns, cray cray. Is there? Okay. We're always being played. You got to figure out the angle. Yes. And, you know, some people think we're deep in rabbit holes, but guess what? Look at the fruit of it all. Look how we were able to stand firm through the pandemic, stand on principles, and because of the programming that we saw happening, and now we're seeing that we all made the right decision, didn't we? So this is vitally important information, because we're seeing what they're planning through their fiction, because they can't help themselves. Yes, how does sand on the beach burn, Jamie? Absolutely. Good question. I wonder if some of it turned to glass. They'll try any angle, says Anne. Let not your heart be troubled. Yes, we're not troubled. I'm concerned about the people that are asleep. That's where my concern comes from. Not about us. We've already stayed out of the way of all this stuff, haven't we? Because we've been prepared, because we've been studying and showing ourselves approved. We see the signs, because God is revealing those to us. But what we're concerned about is the people we love who aren't seeing it, who are walking right into the traps. Voting, getting stuck with things, not aware that of the electric kingdom. They just think, oh, no big deal, just elect Trump again, he'll fix it. Not aware of the 5G technology and all the other things we've been trying to warn people about. That's what we're concerned about, because it's hard to see people we love walking into traps. King Kong says, what did I say? Was Eris the leader of the clowns? No, I said she was the spirit inside of the clowns and their psychotic laughter, because she is the chaos spirit. So notice how they compared the children to the clowns. Well, children's laughter is good laughter, right? And the clowns is evil. So she's saying that she's good and evil. Yes, no man can fix these issues. No man can fix this mess. But we can warn each other. There's no greater thing that you can do than to give your life for your brother, it says in the Bible. So how do we give our life for our brother? We continue to be concerned about them and try to warn them so they don't perish because of lack of knowledge. Don't walk down these traps. Absolutely. Now, how we do that, that's the tough part. I mean, we've all hit a wall with a lot of the people we love, but I can tell you some good things. I can tell you that my mom finally came around. She sends me stuff from Newsbreak all the time, and she's awake now. I never in my life thought my mother would be awake. But here she is in her mid-70s. She's awake. My son is starting to wake up. People I'd never ever thought would wake up to this stuff are waking up. So there is hope. Now, how did that happen? It didn't happen because I'm Enter the Stars and I was beating them over the head with this information. I don't even talk about this stuff really unless an opportunity arises and they bring something up, and I'll usually say something kind of basic just to plant the seed to get them thinking about things. I don't vomit all over them with the information. I tell them one or two little things. I don't send them millions of links. And over the years, they start to wake up. They start to see that something is not right. There is hope for the people you love, but it's how you do it. You don't want to be the judgy Christian. You don't want to be the person saying, I told you so. You don't want to be the person who's bombarding them with a bunch of information. As they bring things up, you basically respond with a short, targeted sentence that gets them to think. And you have to consider that for a minute and pray. Say a little prayer inside of you. What is a perfect thing I can say right now that will get this person to at least think about what's happening? Right? People, they want to discredit directed energy weapons. Well, I can tell you a personal story. When I was in Connecticut, there was a building, and it was in the news like the year prior. It was a set of warehouses along the waterfront of the Housatonic River. And lo and behold, they were talking all about abatement. I don't know if it was mold abatement or it was some kind of asbestos abatement. It was going to cost the people who own that building millions of dollars to abate the mold. Oh, and then mysteriously, lo and behold, the whole warehouse catches on fire. That's probably arson. Why spend the millions of dollars? Then you could just burn it down and blame it on an accident. Blame it on homeless people. You see, the world is not what it seems. And if we keep believing that the world is what they tell us it is, and we believe their official stories, then you're going to be asleep and you're going to fall victim to their lies and their traps. So of course, people burn stuff down to terraform things. It's not outside of the realm of possibility. It's definitely something to consider, that it's possible. If people are telling you that's impossible and that you have no proof, well, what's the proof that it actually did happen the way they say it did? So, just some thoughts. All right, you guys. I don't tell you enough, but I love each and every one of you. I know sometimes I have a personal character flaw, and I'll be honest with you. I sometimes focus on the negative when it comes to the people that come to this channel each and every day instead of the positive, and I need to work on that. I'm a human being just like all of you, and sometimes I focus on the few trolls or the few negative comments, and it's because it's almost in defense of you guys, because you guys are just as much a part of this channel as me. Most of the information comes from you. And so I get defensive when I see people just blanket discrediting what we're saying. Okay, especially because the way we present it. I don't present it as, oh, this is a matter of fact. These are our opinions. When people attack us, I kind of take it personally. Not for myself, but for you. But I need to work on that, because maybe I should just not care, right? I'm just being vulnerable with you guys today, because we need to know that. You guys need to know that I'm not perfect either. I'm just here doing the best I can to help people wake up to this stuff. But I just need to not focus on the negative parts of the people that come to this channel, because I'm overwhelmed with love from all of you. And I need to do that justice by acknowledging that and sitting in that space instead of focusing on the few that don't get it. Okay? So, all right, you guys. Well, have a great rest of your day. I'm not sure what we're going to do tomorrow yet. I do have a couple clips from the blacklist. I don't know if I have enough to do a whole show, but I'll put something together. I'm sure that we'll track some of these other headlines. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. I love each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care and be safe.